Welcome back to AU Family Channel, and thank you so much for being here. It truly means the world to have you as one of our loyal listeners. If our stories have ever touched your heart, we are so grateful that you keep coming back to spend this time with us. So find somewhere comfortable, take a slow, deep breath, and let us begin today's story, together. When I was 13, a boy arrived in our class who had crossed half the world to get there, fleeing a country I could barely find on a map, and he did not speak a single word of our language. His name was Amir, and for the first month he was the loneliest person I had ever seen, marooned in a sea of sounds he could not understand, surrounded by children who treated his silence like proof that he was not quite one of us. This is the story of how a boy from far away, who could not say a word to me at first, became one of the most important friends of my life, and taught me that home is not a place but a thing you build for each other. Amir arrived in the middle of the school year, which is the worst time to arrive anywhere, when all the friendships are already formed and all the seats are already taken. He came from a country that had been torn apart by war, though we did not know the details then, only that his family had left everything behind and traveled a long and dangerous way to end up in our small, ordinary town. He was placed in our class because of his age, though he could not follow a single lesson, and he sat at the back with a look on his face that I did not have a word for at 13 but now recognize as the particular exhaustion of someone who has lost their entire world. The other kids did not know what to make of him, and children are cruel to what they do not understand. Nobody was openly vicious, at least not at first, but there was a wall of indifference around Amir that was almost worse. He ate lunch alone. He stood alone at recess, watching games he could not join because he could not understand the rules being shouted. When the teacher spoke to him, he would nod uncertainly, understanding nothing, and a few kids would snicker. He was 13 years old and completely, utterly alone, in a place where he could not even ask for help, because he did not have the words. I watched all of this from a comfortable distance, and I did nothing, for a while, like everyone else. I want to be honest about why I eventually did something, because it was not because I was kind. It was because of my grandmother. She had come to this country as a young woman, decades before, from somewhere far away, and she had told me stories my whole life about what it felt like to arrive somewhere new with no language and no friends and no map for how anything worked. She used to say that the loneliest she had ever been was not when she was poor or afraid, but when she was surrounded by people whose words she could not understand, invisible in a crowd. And when I looked at Amir at the back of that classroom, I saw my grandmother as a young woman, and I could not look away anymore. So one day at lunch, I did a small thing that turned out to be the beginning of everything. I picked up my tray and I went and sat down across from Amir, who was eating alone as always. I did not know how to talk to him. So I just sat there, and I smiled, and I pointed at myself and said my name, slowly. He looked at me with a wariness that broke my heart, this suspicion that I might be there to mock him. But when he understood that I was not, that I was just there, that I had simply sat down beside him, something in his face changed. He pointed at himself and said, "Amir." And I said it back. "Amir." And he almost smiled. It was the first almost smile I had seen from him in weeks. We could not talk, so we found other ways. That first lunch, we communicated entirely in gestures, in pointing, in drawing little pictures on a napkin, in the universal language of two 13-year-old boys who have decided to be friends and will not let a small thing like sharing no words at all get in the way. It was slow and clumsy and full of misunderstandings, and it was also, I remember, genuinely fun, a kind of game, a puzzle we were solving together. By the end of that lunch we were both laughing, though neither of us could have explained to the other what was funny. Laughter, it turns out, needs no translation. It was the first bridge across the gap between us, and once we had built one, we could not stop building more. I started sitting with Amir every day. And I made a decision that changed both our lives. I decided I was going to teach him our language, and that he was going to teach me his. It became our project, our secret world. I would point at things and say the word, and he would repeat it, and then he would say his word for it, and I would repeat that. Chair. Table. Friend. Food. We built a shared vocabulary one word at a time, laughing at our terrible pronunciations, filling notebooks with drawings and translations. And a strange thing happened as we did it. I began to learn about his world through his words, and he began to learn about mine, and somewhere in the exchange, two boys from opposite ends of the earth became inseparable. Amir learned fast, faster than I could have imagined, because he had to, because his whole life depended on it, and because he was, I discovered, brilliant, a quick and hungry mind that had been trapped behind a language wall for weeks. Within a couple of months he could hold simple conversations. Within a few more he was following lessons. And as his words came, so did his personality, which had been hidden behind his silence all that time. He was funny. He was kind. He was fiercely loyal. He noticed everything, the way people do when they have had to survive by watching. The quiet, exhausted boy at the back of the class turned out to be one of the most alive people I had ever known. He had been there the whole time. He just could not reach us yet. Through the words he taught me, Amir slowly told me his story, and it reshaped my entire understanding of the world. He told me about his home, which had been beautiful, a city full of markets and music and family, and about how the war had come and taken it all apart. He told me, in his careful growing vocabulary, about the journey his family had made, a journey I could barely comprehend, dangerous and long and full of loss. He had left behind his grandparents, his friends, his school, his whole world, and crossed the earth to sit alone at the back of a classroom in a town where no one understood him. And he had done it all without complaint, this 13-year-old, carrying a weight that would have crushed most grown men. I had never known anyone who had suffered like Amir had, and what astonished me was not his suffering but his lack of bitterness. He did not hate the war, or the world, or the people in our school who had ignored him. He was, if anything, grateful to be safe, grateful for a new chance, grateful for one friend who had sat down across from him at lunch. His gratitude, in the face of everything he had lost, shamed me and taught me in equal measure. I had spent 13 years complaining about small things, taking my safe and easy life completely for granted, and here was a boy who had lost everything and was thankful for a napkin drawing and a shared laugh. He changed how I saw my own life, permanently. As Amir's language grew, I brought him into my world beyond our lunch table. I introduced him to my other friends, who were wary at first and then, once they could actually talk to him, completely won over, because Amir was impossible not to love once you could reach him. I brought him to my house, where my grandmother, the one who had inspired it all, wept when she met him, because she saw in him her own young self, and the two of them, separated by decades and continents, understood each other instantly in the wordless language of people who have had to start their whole lives over. Amir became part of my family. My grandmother cooked for him. My parents looked out for him. He had crossed the world alone, and slowly, we became a second home. It was not all easy. There were kids at school who did not welcome Amir, who resented his presence, who said the ugly things that get said about people who come from far away. There was a group of older boys especially who made his life hard, who mocked his accent as it developed, who told him to go back where he came from, who did the cruel small things that cruel people do. And I watched Amir absorb it with a dignity that was almost unbearable, never fighting back, never sinking to their level, just enduring, the way he had endured so much worse. But it made me angry in a way I had never been angry before, and it forced me to decide what kind of person I was going to be. The turning point came in the school hallway, when those older boys cornered Amir and one of them knocked his books from his hands and told him, loudly, in front of everyone, that he did not belong here, that this was not his country, that he should leave. And I watched Amir bend down to pick up his books, his face carefully blank, absorbing it, and something in me finally broke. I stepped in. I put myself between Amir and those boys, and I told them, in front of the whole crowded hallway, that Amir belonged here more than they did, because he had chosen to be here, had crossed the whole world and lost everything to be here, while they had done nothing but be born lucky. And I picked up his books, and I handed them to him, and we walked away together. That moment cost me some things. A couple of those older boys made my life harder for a while after that. But it was the best thing I ever did, and it changed something between Amir and me, deepened it into something permanent. Because Amir understood what it had cost me, understood that I had chosen him over my own comfort and safety, and for a boy who had been made to feel he belonged nowhere, having someone choose to belong to him was everything. He did not have the words, even then, to fully say what it meant. But he did not need them. He just gripped my arm, hard, in the hallway, and looked at me, and I understood. We were brothers now. Not by blood. By choice. Which, I have come to believe, is the deeper kind. The lowest point in Amir's journey, the one that nearly broke him, came about a year in, when news reached his family about the home they had left behind. Something had happened there, a loss, people they loved, and I watched my strong, grateful, uncomplaining friend finally buckle under a grief too heavy to carry. For a few weeks he disappeared into a darkness, missing school, not answering, retreating into the pain of everything the war had taken from him. And I did for Amir what he had never had anyone to do, because he had crossed the world alone. I showed up. I sat with him in his family's small apartment, in the middle of a grief I could not fully understand, and I refused to leave him alone in it, the way he had once been so alone. I could not fix Amir's grief, could not give him back his home or the people he had lost. But I could make sure that this time, in this new country, he did not have to grieve alone. My family came too. My grandmother sat with Amir's mother, two women who had both left everything behind, and they did not need a shared language to comfort each other. And slowly, held up by the second family he had found, Amir came back. He returned to school, to our lunch table, to the life he was building. But he was changed by that grief, deepened, and so was I, because I had been let into the deepest part of my friend's pain, and there is no closeness like the closeness of having sat with someone in their darkest hour. As the years passed, Amir did not just learn our language. He mastered it. He surpassed most of the kids who had been born speaking it, because he had learned it with a hunger and a discipline that native speakers never need. By high school he was one of the top students in our whole school, this boy who had arrived unable to say hello. Teachers who had once written him off as a lost cause now held him up as an example. And I got to watch it all, got to watch the quiet, exhausted, invisible boy at the back of the classroom become one of the brightest lights in the whole school, and every time someone marveled at how far he had come, I remembered that first almost smile over a shared napkin, and I felt a pride I cannot describe. The thing I treasure most is how Amir, once he had found his footing, turned around and did for others what had been done for him. When new kids arrived who did not speak the language, kids from other countries, other wars, other losses, Amir was the first to sit down across from them at lunch. He became the welcomer, the bridge builder, the one who remembered exactly what it felt like to be marooned in a sea of strange sounds. He built for others the home that my grandmother and I had built for him. And watching him do it, I understood that this is how kindness works, that it moves through the world like a current, passed from person to person, and that the small thing I had done at a lunch table had rippled out into a boy who would spend his life welcoming the lost. There is a moment I hold on to from our final year of school. Amir gave a speech, to the whole school, about his journey, in the language he had learned from scratch, and he told the story of the boy who had sat down across from him at lunch when he could not speak a word, and he said that that small act had saved his life, had told him that this new world might have a place for him after all. And he pointed to me, in the audience, in front of everyone. And I sat there weeping, because I knew the truth, which is that I had done such a small thing, just sat down, just been there, and it had meant the whole world to a boy who had lost everything. The smallest kindness, offered to someone alone, is never small at all. I learned so much from Amir about what really matters. He had lost his home, his country, his friends, his whole world, and he had discovered, in the losing, that home was never really the place at all. Home, he taught me, is people. It is the person who sits down across from you when you are alone. It is the family that takes you in. It is the friend who stands between you and the ones who say you do not belong. Amir built a new home out of nothing but the kindness of a few people who chose him, and it was as real and as warm as the home he had lost. He taught me that no one is ever truly homeless as long as someone chooses to belong to them. It is the truest thing I know. Amir and I are grown men now, and we are still, all these years later, as close as brothers. He built an extraordinary life in the country he crossed the world to reach, a life of exactly the kind of contribution that the boys in the hallway said he never could make. He is more devoted to this place than almost anyone I know, precisely because he chose it, fought for it, lost everything to reach it. And whenever I hear people talk about newcomers the way those hallway boys did, saying they do not belong, that they take and do not give, I think of Amir, who gave and gave and gave, and I know that they are wrong, that they are looking at a frightened, exhausted, brilliant human being and seeing only a stranger. Amir taught me to always look again. The memory I treasure most is a quiet one, from a few years ago. Amir invited my family and me to his home, and he cooked us a meal from his old country, the food of the world he had left behind, and as we sat around his table, his family and mine mixed together, I looked around and I understood what we had built. Two families from opposite ends of the earth, brought together by two 13-year-old boys and a napkin, sharing a meal, completely at home with each other. My grandmother was gone by then, but I thought of her, and I knew she was somewhere smiling, because the young woman who had once been so lonely in a new country had, through me, helped build exactly the kind of welcome she had once needed. The circle had closed. I think often about how close I came to being one of the kids who just looked away. It would have been so easy. Everyone else was doing it. Amir was not my problem. I had my own friends, my own comfortable life, no reason to cross the room to a boy I could not even talk to. If not for my grandmother's stories, I probably would have. And I would have gone through my whole life never knowing Amir, never gaining the brother of my heart, never learning the things he taught me about gratitude and resilience and what home really means. The smallest choice, whether to sit down at a lonely boy's table or walk past, and it changed the entire shape of both our lives. We never know which small choices are the ones that matter most. Amir taught me that the people we are quickest to see as other, as foreign, as not belonging, are so often just people, exactly like us, who have suffered more than we can imagine and are carrying it with more grace than we could manage. Behind the language barrier, behind the strange name and the unfamiliar customs, was a boy who wanted exactly what I wanted, to be seen, to belong, to have a friend, to be safe and loved. There was no real gap between us at all, only the illusion of one, made of unfamiliar sounds. The moment I sat down and started building a bridge, the gap simply disappeared, and I found on the other side of it not a stranger but a brother. There are brothers like that everywhere, waiting, if we would only cross the room. I have tried to live by what Amir taught me. Whenever I encounter someone who is new, who is struggling, who cannot quite reach the world around them because of a language or a difference or a wall of unfamiliarity. I remember a lonely boy at the back of a classroom, and I cross the room. I sit down. I build the bridge. Because I know, now, better than most, what is waiting on the other side of that small brave act. A whole human being, as real and as worthy and as full of gifts as anyone, just waiting for someone to be willing to reach them. Amir was that for me. I try to be that for others. It is how I keep carrying him forward, and my grandmother through him. People sometimes describe what I did for Amir as generous, as if I gave him something. And I always correct them, because it is important, the same way it was important with every friend who ever changed my life. Amir gave me far more than I ever gave him. I gave him a seat at a lunch table. He gave me a whole new way of seeing the world, a brother, a second family, an education in gratitude and courage and resilience that no school could ever provide. He gave me my grandmother back, in a way, let me honor her by welcoming a version of her younger self. The kindness in this story looks like it flows one way, but it never does. When you welcome a stranger, you are the one who is enriched. Every single time. I think about my grandmother constantly, in all of this, because she is the reason it happened, and she never even knew Amir would exist. Her stories, told to a small boy who half listened, planted something that bloomed years later at a lunch table. She had taken her own loneliness, her own hard arrival in a strange country, and turned it into stories, and those stories turned into a boy willing to cross a room, and that boy turned into a lifelong friendship, and two families joined in a chain of welcomed newcomers that continues to this day. That is how the good we do outlives us. My grandmother's kindness is still moving through the world, through Amir, through me, through every lonely newcomer Amir has welcomed since. It never ended. It just kept going. If there is one thing Amir taught me, it is that home is not a place you are from but a thing you build for each other. He lost the place he was from, utterly and forever, and he built a new home out of nothing but chosen love, and it was every bit as real. Which means that all of us have the power to give someone a home, no matter who they are or where they come from, simply by choosing to belong to them. The lonely person in your midst, the newcomer, the outsider, the one who cannot quite reach the world around them, is not asking for much. They are asking for a seat at the table. And you have the power to give it. It costs you almost nothing, and it can mean everything. I learned that gratitude is a kind of strength, maybe the deepest kind. Amir had every reason to be bitter, had lost more than most people lose in a lifetime, and he chose gratitude instead, chose to be thankful for safety and a second chance and one friend, and that gratitude carried him through everything and made him magnetic, someone everyone wanted to be near. I had my easy, safe life and spent it complaining, and he had his shattered one and spent it giving thanks. He taught me that gratitude is not about how much you have. It is about how you choose to see what you have. And a person who can be grateful in the face of great loss has a strength that nothing in the world can break. There is an image I carry from that very first day, and I return to it whenever I am tempted to walk past someone who is alone. It is the sight of Amir at that lunch table, by himself, eating in silence, surrounded by children who did not see him, and the feeling of picking up my tray and walking across that room, my heart pounding, not knowing how to talk to him, just knowing that I could not leave him alone one more day. That walk across the cafeteria was one of the most important journeys of my life, though it took only a few seconds and covered only a few yards. Sometimes the most important distance you will ever travel is the short walk to a lonely person's table. Amir taught me that. I have been walking it ever since. The memory that means the most to me now is Amir at his citizenship ceremony, years after that first lunch, standing with a group of people from all over the world, taking an oath to the country he had crossed the earth to reach. My family and I were there, in the audience, and when it was done, Amir found us in the crowd, and the first person he came to was me, and he wrapped me in a hug and said, in the language I had taught him one word at a time on a napkin, "We did it, brother. We." As if the citizenship were mine too. As if the whole journey, from that lonely lunch table to that ceremony, had been something we had done together. And I suppose it had been. I suppose the best things always are. I asked Amir once whether he remembered how he felt that first month, before I sat down, when he was completely alone. And his face grew serious, and he said he remembered it exactly, that it was the loneliest he had ever been, lonelier even than the dangerous journey, because on the journey at least he had his family, but in that classroom he was surrounded by people and utterly alone, unable to reach a single one of them. And then he said the thing I will never forget. He said, "And then one day, a boy sat down." And that was the day I started to believe I might survive this. One boy, sitting down. That was all it took to give a drowning person something to hold. We so badly underestimate the power of simply sitting down. These days, whenever I see someone standing alone, on the edge of things, unable to reach the world around them, I do not hesitate anymore. I cross the room. I sit down. I have done it in schools and workplaces and waiting rooms and 100 other places, and it never fails to amaze me what is waiting on the other side of that small brave act. A whole person. A potential friend. Sometimes a brother. Amir taught me that the lonely people all around us are not asking us to solve their lives. They are just asking us to sit down, to see them, to build one small bridge. And that we all have the power to do that, every single day, for someone. It is the easiest kind of heroism there is, and the world is starving for it. If there is one thing my friendship with Amir taught me, it is to always look again at the people we are quickest to call strangers. The newcomer, the foreigner, the one who talks differently or comes from far away, is not other. They are just a person, carrying their own losses and their own gifts, wanting exactly what you want, waiting for someone to cross the room. Behind every language barrier and every unfamiliar face is a whole human being as worthy of love as anyone you already know. I almost missed the brother of my life because he came from far away and could not speak my language. Do not make the mistake I nearly made. Cross the room. Sit down. You have no idea who you might find. I learned that home is something we give to each other, and that no one who is welcomed is ever truly homeless, no matter how far they have traveled or how much they have lost. Amir lost his whole world, and we built him a new one out of nothing but chosen love, and it held. If there is a lonely person in your life, a newcomer, an outsider, someone marooned in a place where they cannot quite belong, remember that you have the power to give them a home simply by choosing them. It is the most powerful thing an ordinary person can do. Amir crossed the whole world to find it, and in the end he found it not in a place, but in a boy who sat down at his table. Be that boy. Be that home. Thank you so much for staying with me all the way to the end of this story. It truly means the world that you are here. If Amir's long journey home moved your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe to AU Family Channel, where a brand new story is waiting for you every single week. And remember what a boy from far away taught me. Home is not a place you come from, it is a thing we build for each other, and the smallest kindness offered to someone alone is never small at all. So this week, if you see someone standing alone, cross the room. Sit down. You never know whose whole world you might become. I will see you in the next one.